Okay. So we're going to look at forms today, and you all know forms on a web interface. A very simple form, a form we all know, a paper form, you fill it in, you hand it in. And on a computer we also can have forms, and we press the submit button. And there's a very simple form that you've all seen that you might not think of as a form, which is you logging onto a website. You entering your username and your password, and you click submit. That's actually also a form. It's just such a small form, we don't think of it as a form. But this is basically what we look at today, and this is a way for us to get information from the visitor of our web page, to take this information in and to process it in some sort of way. So, example would be username and password. And how would we process it? What would we do? We've got a website, we get somebody's username and password. What would we do with that information? Anyone? No, you're all very shy. But if there's no volunteer, I've got to pick somebody. What do we do with a username and password? We had a website. Somebody gave us the username and password. What do we do?
You log in with it.
Okay, so the visitor gave us the username and password. How do we decide whether we let them log in? What do we need to do?
Basically give them authorization.
Do we always authorize them?
No.
When do we not authorize them?
Like when you think potential matches are.
Yeah, for example, password long.
Yeah.
So we get username and password. We go to check actually in our database, is that actually the password for that username? And usually there's one username, there's one password. I had a friend who was working for a company, it was in the 90s, and he was programming something in PHP. And his boss actually said, people can have any username they want, even if it's already taken. So he had to program it in a very strange way, because that's what the company wanted. That, if you're called Peter, you can have password X, and somebody else could also be Peter. And it has a different password, it's a different account, completely ridiculous. But those kind of things are extremely uncommon, I would say. Yeah. But example, username, password. Or let's say we want to check the weather. You enter your postcode, we look up somewhere what's the weather for this postcode. We have some sort of currency conversion. We enter what's one pound worth in another currency, and we then look it up in some sort of way. And we process this information in some way, and we then create some sort of output. And I know this is all a bit much to take in, because in the end, you are all business-related students. So please remember, if this is all getting a bit fast, because we decided now to stay on this module, you can always ask for help in the workshops. And something some students tend to forget is actually for each module you're supposed to spend 5 to 6 hours on independent study per module. And that's not per year, that's per week. And of course, we've got our reading list. There are books, there are other kind of resources. I thought I changed it to resources, but maybe I forgot to save. So there are books in the reading list, there are videos. Last week, when I was off ill, did you look at the videos from my email? Anybody looked at them? Anyone? Hands up. Who didn't look at them? To see whether you're awake. Yeah, some hands should go up. You can't have all looked at them and not looked at them at the same time. Yeah. Did you look at them?
No.
Nah. Did you look at them? You look at them. Okay. Was worth a try. Was worth a try. You might have. Anyway, if you want to know more about this topic, look at the links I emailed you. Okay. So we talked about PHP being there to make web page dynamic. And up to this point, all all the values in our scripts have been hard-coded. So the whole exercise so far was fairly pointless, in a sense that our PHP, when we run it, it would always come up with the same kind of output. Because whatever calculation we did, whatever we did, we always had the same input going into it. Because our input was always hard-coded. But in the real world, there might be many things we might want to do. And we might take information out of a database. We'll look how to do that later. Or we might want to take information from our visitors, from the visitors to our web page. And this is what we do now. And we looked at HTML forms. Spelling mistake here. So, something to do for... Can I not write on the... Let's try again. Oh no, I can't write now. Okay. Doesn't matter. So, I should of course say form here. So in week 4 we looked at HTML forms, we looked at the different HTML tags that make forms happen. We just didn't do anything with the input yet. And this is what we're gonna change now. We're gonna take this information entered in the form and we're gonna do something with it. So as you've known from the earlier weeks, a form should contain the following. We've got some sort of start tag, we've got some sort of end tag. And usually we've got one submit button in this form. Now, the important thing here to remember is that if you have is that you can have several forms in a page. Let me use that. Okay. We could have a form tag to start a page. We then close it. And then within the same HTML page we can open a new form and then close it again. We could have many different forms in one HTML page. And each form would have a submit button. And if you press the submit button, only the information in this form will be sent to the server. So if you've got two forms with two submit buttons, and you press submit in form 1, only the content of form 1 will be sent. And if you press the submit button in form 2, only the content in form 2 will be sent. Within the form we then define an action, which is basically where we send the information to. And there are two ways of sending this information. One is called post, one is called get. We'll look at them in a moment. We then usually have some sort of inputs to allow the users to enter something. So what inputs do you remember from week 4? You all submitted the work on GitHub. You created a form. So what kind of inputs did you ask for? When you had that form, what did you ask your visitors? Do you remember? Yeah, it's a while ago. Sorry? You can't remember? Yeah, okay. So we had different kinds of inputs. There were text boxes, so the visitor can just write text in those text boxes. We had drop-down lists. And do you remember you had a drop-down list and radio buttons, and one, did you ask something like Facebook or Twitter? Was it something like that? Oh, yeah, was something like that. We've got radio buttons, and so on. So we've got different types of elements where we can ask the user to enter different types of information. And then, of course, the important thing, the submit button. Okay, so here's how a very simple form looks like, nothing new here. This is all stuff you've seen before. The difference now is we add this bit here. Method is post, so there are two ways of sending the information. And action, and then we spell out a file. So when we press the submit button, the information in this form will be sent to this file. And what information is in this form? What do we ask? In this case we ask, we have a text field and we internally give it the name, and here we say what is your name. Yeah? So it will say what is your name, new line, and then there's a text box to fill in. And the user can then press submit. Okay. There are two ways of sending a form, any type of form. One is get, one is post. What's the difference? If you use get, the information from the form will actually be added, will actually be visible in the address bar of the browser. Yeah? So all the names of the variables and the content of the variables will be visible in the address bar of the browser. If you use post, they won't be visible in the address bar of the browser, they will be sent another way. So get is easier in a sense for you programming this for the first time. You can manipulate things easier because without having to go back to the form you can pretend there was a different kind of information entered, because you can just edit the information in the address bar of the browser. If you use get, yeah, this is where it goes to the address bar of the browser. You can also bookmark the whole thing, yeah, because it will all be a long address bar. If people bookmark it, or if you use a Microsoft product, they don't call it bookmark, they call it favorite, but it's the same thing. But if you bookmark it, you can basically bookmark whatever information has been entered in the form. Most people, I think, prefer post, because it means everything is not so visible for the user and the UL looks a bit nicer, and it's not so easy for people to try to put information in the form they're maybe not supposed to put into the form. Okay, how does it look internally? Let's have a look. So we got our visitor to our website. They ask the server for this web page. So it's a normal HTML page typically, but it could also be a PHP page. And the server will send the HTML code that makes up the form to our client, yeah, to the visitor of our web page. Our visitor of our web page will then fill the form in, will press the submit button, and the whole thing will be sent to the server. And the server can now access all the information the visitor has filled in, and could, for example, talk to a database. Yeah. For example, to check, is this username and this password correct? Yeah. Or let's say you posted something on social media. You know, the form actually was the, let's say you use Twitter or Facebook or WeChat or something like that, and you entered something, you pressed the submit button. Yeah. That message in social media that you just post, the message you post will actually just be stored in a database. And yeah, we then usually create some sort of web page to send back to the client. For example, if they log in, we could say you successfully logged in, or couldn't log you in, password is wrong. Or if you post a message on social media, it might say something like message successfully posted to your followers. Okay. So let's have a look at post and get again to enforce this idea. There's post and get. We specify whichever one we want in the form tag. Yeah, so if we use post, the information will be passed invisibly to the user, meaning they can't see it directly in their web browser. If we use get, it will just be part of the address in the web browser. Yeah. Okay. So, simple example, we've got a form, and in this form we asked for name and age, yeah, and then this user filled in name is Rodney, age is 2, yeah. All the information we filled in the form will be attached to the address bar in the browser, will be visible there. And this is a way of passing variables in PHP from the outside world. You don't have to use a form to do that. You could, for example, create a link to a specific page, and as part of the address of that link, you can attach whatever variables you want. And those variables will then be accessible at the receiving PHP file. The first variable will be attached with a question mark. So question mark, the name of the variable, equal sign, and the content of the variable. And all subsequent variables will be attached with ampersands. And you might have seen that when you go online shopping. They might not necessarily show any useful information in there, but if you click on a link that goes to Amazon, there might be quite a few of those things attached. For example, companies like to track where their visitors come from. So you get an email from a company, they might tell you visit our website, and the company in the end actually wants to know how did the people find us, which marketing efforts work best. So in the email, they might have a certain campaign running, and they might attach information to the link to find out which campaign brought the customer to our website. They might even go as far of attaching some sort of serial number, some sort of random string that is associated with you, so that they even know, even though you just click on it in an email, if they attach some sort of serial number that identifies you, they would even know which person clicked in the email on that link. Or let's say Amazon, Amazon has something going on called, I think, Amazon Associates, something like that. So basically, if you send people to the Amazon webpage and they buy something, you get 5% or something like that. Yeah. So if you send people to Amazon, you want to get 5% of whatever people spend there. So you need to attach something to your link to Amazon so that Amazon knows that they're gonna pay you. Okay, if we use post instead, yeah, the HTML tag looks very similar, just we use post instead of get, but the address, yeah, that we see in our web browser looks just like it normally does without any variables attached. Okay. We then send people to another PHP file, or theoretically it could be the same PHP file, and the variables will then be, the content of those variables will be available in something we call superglobals. Yeah. So this is a $_post, $_get. So if you call, in our previous example, if you call one of the variables name, and we use get and we call this one name, and we use get and we call this one age. So the name one will be available in $_get, squarey brackets name, squarey brackets closed. And the age will be available in $_get, squarey brackets age, and then we close the squarey brackets. Okay. I'll jump a few slides back, so don't get confused if there's so much happening now on this screen. Yeah. This is my simple form. Let's go through it line by line. Line 1, what's going on in line 1? You can look at the screen. So line 1, what do we do? Yeah. I'm asking you, what do we do in line 1? Yeah, make a whole sentence. The web page. Okay, yeah. Line 2. Yeah, so we start the header, line 3. The title of the web page, line 4. Yeah, the end of the header, line 5. Yeah, the main part of the web page. Now the difficult bit, you get the difficult one. Line 6. Yeah, we start the form. So, what's the file called that we send things to when we press the submit button? When we press the submit button in the form, where will we send the information to? Yeah, and what's the PHP file called we're going to send it to? It's in line 6. What's the file called? Post is how we send it, but where do we send it to? Do you want to answer? Yeah, PHP form hyphen example 2. And how do we send it? And which method do we use to send it?
Post.
Post, yeah. And what's the other one called? Good memory? Get, yeah, good. Okay, line 7.
The form name is what's your name?
Yeah, so we just, it's not really the form name, it's just what we show to the visitor. What does BR do?
Put the type and name.
What does BR do?
Is that space?
Second?
Is that space?
Yeah, a new line. Yeah. So with the BR, the text box is under what's your name. Without the BR, the text box would be next to what is your name. Line 8. Yeah. So what type of input is it? Text. Yeah, and what do we call it internally? Name. Okay. And now we know, because we use the method post and the name is name, at the receiving file, yeah, we use method post and the name is name. So at the receiving file, whatever the user enters will be stored in $_post square brackets name. So whatever the user enters will be available there. Line 9. Yeah, and what is it? What kind of input is it? Line 9, what does line 9 do? The code in line 9 will create the submit button. So there will be a submit button, and when we press it, we'll send the form off. Line 10? Yeah. Line 11? Yeah, and line 12? Okay. So I did put this code on the web server at this location. Yeah. So what do you expect to see when I press on that link? Next one then in the row. What do you expect to see when I click on the link? We see the form with a text field with a submit button. Okay, let's click on it. You want to continue? Yes. Yeah, and this is what we see. Now, what is your name? And I can enter my name. My browser has some suggestions, and I've got the submit button. Now, and if I press the submit button, all of this will be sent to that address here. Okay, so this is the receiving file. Yeah. So like I said before, we use post, so the whole thing will be stored in $_post name. There are certain rules when you have to use quotes in the square brackets and when you can leave them out. I'll talk about them later. Okay, so do the first 5 lines. What do the first 5 lines say? Line 1? Yeah. Because they're also easy, we've just done that. Line 1?
Start of the page. The second is the start of the head.
Yeah, start of the header.
Is the title of this page.
Yeah, good.
Fourth is the end of the head.
Yeah, end of the header.
Start of the body.
Yeah. Line 6.
And
Yeah. So we were in HTML mode. We now switch to PHP mode. We use the echo command. And what do we print now? We print the super global $_post name, which is the information we just got from the form. How are you? Line 7 and 8.
Here no.
Okay. So let's try the whole thing out. Anybody wants to volunteer their name? What's your name? What should I enter?
Ethan.
Ethan.
Yeah.
Is it this one?
Yeah.
Okay. I press submit. Yeah. Hello, Ethan. How are you? Yeah. So I took the information you re-entered in the second file. I can access it because it's stored in a variable, and I can do stuff with it. Yeah. Okay. So what happened? Yeah. So what happened? We use post, we use name, so the whole thing gets stored in $_post square brackets name. Yeah. When we press the submit button, the whole thing gets sent to this file, and this is the code for this file. Yeah, this is what happened. A reminder of different types of forms we've got. You've already seen text boxes, text areas, checkboxes. Here's a new one called hidden. It's a form element that will be passed on as part of the form, but will not be visible in the web browser. Obviously, don't put any secrets in there, because even though it's not visible in the web browser directly, when the web browser renders the web page, your visitor just has to click on view source code, and your visitor can see what kind of information is being transmitted here. Okay, yeah, we've got radio buttons, we've got drop-down lists. Drop-down lists, yeah, usually we have those kind of drop-down lists where you can only pick one value. So we're gonna have a name for the variable, and these are the different values that can go into the variable. So in the drop-down list, if I click on blue font, the content of my variable will be whatever I put in the double quotes, for example blue. If our visitor clicks on pink font, the value stored in the variable will be whatever we enter here, for example pink. Same with radio buttons. You know, radio buttons, you can only pick one of them. If you pick another one, the first one pops out. like an old-fashioned radio. So here, yeah, it will be stored in a variable called, you tell me? Who's next? What's the variable called? No. Background. The variable is called background, and this is, and there was some sort of copy and paste mistake when I copied it into PowerPoint. So here we've got the wrong quotes, and suddenly here we got spaces before and after. So obviously it shouldn't look like that. They should all be the same, and we don't use curly quotes. This is just when I copy and paste stuff into PowerPoint. PowerPoint sometimes makes a mess out of it. So, yeah, this is the name of the variable. These are the values stored in there. Do you remember the elements in a form that looks similar to a radio button, but you can put more than one? What are they called? Huh? They were called checkboxes. So if we use checkboxes, each of them will be its own variable, because more than one can be selected. Okay, so here's a more complex form. Line 1. Whose turn is it next? Line 1. What does line 1 do? Now, I think you're looking at the wrong code. In this one, line 1. Yeah. I left out all the HTML stuff because there wasn't enough space on the slide, otherwise it gets even smaller. So when we send the form off, which file do we send it to? Yeah. And do we send it using post or get? There were two ways of sending it, post and get. Which one do we use? Post. Is post the hidden one or the one where it's in the address bar? Post is the hidden one, yeah. Okay. Line 2. Yeah, so we start a new paragraph and we ask what's your name. Line 3. Yeah, so it's a form element. What type is it? What type is it? Text. And what will the variable be called? Name. Yeah, so we already know at the receiving script, the content that the user fills in here will be called $_post square brackets name. Line 4. Line 4, what type is it? Hidden, yeah? And that's the kind of stuff we don't see. So I give it a name, in this case hidden number. What's the value? 7, okay. Line 5. Yeah. Line 6. Actually, we skipped a line, didn't we? Line 6. So no, let's continue there. Let's go on. Line 6. Yeah, I tricked you there. Line 6. Text area. That's the one where we have a bigger space. Because a text box only is one line. Text area we can have a few lines. Line 7. You know? What do we do in line 7? Yeah, so we ask the user, what does BR do? New line. Okay, line 8 to 10. I'll give you 3 lines. Yeah, radio buttons. So they are the ones, you press one. If you press a second one, the first one unpresses again. The first one pops out. What's the variable called? What's the variable called? That is the value, or is one possible value. What's the variable called? Background, yeah. So if I press green background, what value will be stored in the variable? Now if I press green background, what value will be stored in the variable?
Green.
Green. Yeah. Line 11. Yeah, new paragraph, and we ask what font would you like. Select, what's select? Anybody remembers what select is? Drop down list. So, 3 different options. If I click on pink font, what's the value?
Pink.
What's the variable name? Huh?
Pink font.
The pink is the value. What's the variable name? Font. Yeah. So there'll be a variable called font, or in this case $_post font, and it will have one of 3 values. And select here means the end of the drop-down list. Yeah. Then we've got do you agree to stuff? Yeah, because they often say, do you agree to terms and conditions or whatever. It's a checkbox. What's the variable called? What's the variable called? Yeah, and the value, if we tick the box? Yeah, you have agreed to stuff. And if we don't tick the box, this variable will be empty. And then we got a submit button, and that's it. So let's have a look before we finish for today. And then I'll finish these slides off next time. Let's go back. So I put all of this here. Yeah. Here is it. What's your name? Ethan. What's your address? Let's make it up. Huh? Factory code? Foundry code. Found. Anyway, just. So which background you want? Green. Yellow. Yellow or green? Wait, who's Ethan? Ethan can decide. Where's Ethan? Yeah, green. Did you say green? Okay, which font do you like? Pink. Do you agree to stuff or not? Yeah? Okay. And now I take all the input, I do something with it. Yeah? So we got pink or green, you agree to stuff, we also transmit it. Nice color scheme? Not sure. Okay, so see you in the workshop, and I'll finish the slides off next time.
You guys.